The fat that you see hanging off the body, like making someone look overweight, stored between your skin and muscles, is referred to as subcutaneous fat. Visceral fat is different. Visceral fat is the belly fat that accumulates around and within the internal organs. It's behind the muscles. It accumulates around the heart, the kidneys, intestines, and pancreas. Everyone has at least some visceral fat, and a small amount is considered normal and healthy. But too much can be very harmful. Visceral fat is considered the most dangerous kind of fat and is sometimes referred to as toxic fat because it produces inflammatory molecules linked to a higher risk of chronic diseases such as heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, and even early death. If you accumulate too much visceral fat, it's very important to reduce it and keep it within a healthy range. But how do we do that? Well, before we get started, we kind of need to know how much visceral fat do we have. So we need a way to measure that. That way, when we measure again, we know if we have in fact reduced visceral fat. Now, the most accurate ways to measure visceral fat are CT scan and MRI, but they're also very expensive and not always readily available. Another option is DEXA scan, which is more available and can give very good information about visceral fat. If you don't have access to or don't want to use any of these methods, some very advanced, sophisticated smart scales can also measure visceral fat. I use the Hume Health Body Pod, which is actually considered a bioanalyzer and has been shown to be 98% accurate compared to medical grade scanners. It can measure muscle mass and body fat percentage as well as visceral fat. The Body Pod specifically measures torso visceral fat surrounding the organs, while visceral fat also exists marbled into the muscles and in other places in the body. Their index intentionally focuses on torso fat, visceral fat deposits, because research shows this is where the visceral fat has the most significant health impact. And that's really what we're concerned about here. If you want to try the Hume Health Body Pod, I have a link for you down below and you can save 15%. And that discount will also stack on any sales that they have. So if it's on sale, you can save an additional 15%. So if you don't want to use any of those options, one very simple thing you can do is just get a flexible measuring tape, like a sewing measuring tape. Wrap that tape measure around your waist, just above your hips, right around your navel, so the largest, fattest part of your belly. In general, for females, 35 inches or more means you're at higher risk for health problems likely stemming from visceral fat. For males, the number is 40 inches or more. Now, we need to stop right there and say that even though visceral fat is internal, it can also cause the belly to protrude. That's why measuring can help give you an idea. Next, we're going to talk about 5 dietary changes that you can make to reduce visceral fat. And then we're going to talk about the best exercises to reduce visceral fat. Number 1, eliminate ultra-processed foods. You knew I was going to say that, right? What we're really talking about is junk food, like donuts, pizza, hot dogs, burgers, fries, chips, cookies, cakes, candy, ice cream, chocolate bars, pretzels, instant oatmeal, frozen waffles, pancakes, processed cheeses, most frozen meals, and most instant meals and packaged snacks. And the list goes on and on and on. Our grocery stores are loaded with them. Highly processed foods, they have very low nutritional value, if any at all. They intensify your hunger, so you just want to keep eating more and more and more, and cause inflammation. Stick to whole foods. Stick to real foods. Number 2, eliminate sugary drinks, including soda and fruit juices, even orange juice and apple juice, and almost all commercially available fruit juices. These drinks are often marketed as healthy, but are loaded with sugar and added sugar. This also means sugary-filled fruit smoothies. A high intake of sugary drinks increases belly fat by spiking insulin, disrupting fat regulation, and promoting fat storage, especially around the belly. And what goes up must come down, so just as sugary drinks spike insulin, the sugar rush also triggers a rapid blood sugar drop and increases cravings, creating a cycle of overeating, belly fat gain, and a higher risk of metabolic disease. Number 3, avoid added sugar. Table sugar or added sugar is made up of both glucose and fructose. Fructose is actually metabolized in the liver. Studies have shown that fructose can increase visceral fat. It can also increase insulin resistance. Now, when you hear fructose, you're probably automatically thinking about fruit. And rightly so, because fruit has fructose in it, right? Fruit contains fructose. But while fruit contains fructose, it also contains fiber and water, which can reduce the overall impact the fructose has on insulin and fat storage. Fruit also contains vitamins and minerals and helpful antioxidants. And not all fruit is created equally. Berries like blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, and blackberries have a very low glycemic index than most other kinds of fruit, which means they have less impact on insulin levels. And they're loaded with health-promoting antioxidants. So avoiding fruit is not a must. But if you're really serious about eliminating visceral fat quickly, you might want to consider reducing fruit intake or limiting it only to berries for at least a little while. Avoiding added sugar also means anything that contains high fructose corn syrup. Though it contains the word fructose, it is much different than the fructose found in fruit. And while fruit in season and in the right context can be health supporting, high fructose corn syrup can be very detrimental to your health. High fructose corn syrup is highly processed sweetener made from cornstarch, resulting in a mixture of fructose and glucose. Naturally occurring fructose in fruit is a simple sugar found alongside fiber and vitamins and minerals, as we've talked about earlier. The key differences are that high fructose corn syrup is an added sugar with no nutritional value, and its sugar profile is created through an enzymatic or chemical process. But avoiding high fructose corn syrup can be extremely challenging because many of your favorite fruits are loaded with high fructose corn syrup, like breakfast cereals, granola bars, many types of crackers, sweetened yogurts, many types of breads and muffins, cakes and cookies, condiments like ketchup, barbecue sauce, salad dressing, and relish. And the list goes on and on and on. Remember, if we go back to number 1, what we want to do is eliminate ultra-processed foods, and we've just listed several of them. Now let's stop right there. One caveat to this is that if you can keep your calories low and keep yourself in a slight calorie deficit and focus mostly on nutritionally dense whole foods, you can get away with a little treat once in a while and be just fine. What it really comes down to is how quickly do you want to lose your belly fat, and especially visceral fat. Number 4 is increase protein. Protein is nutritionally dense and helps to satisfy hunger. Research suggests that eating more protein can help reduce visceral fat through multiple pathways. It boosts feelings of fullness, increases caloric burn through the thermic effect of food, and helps maintain lean muscle mass during weight loss. High protein diets are linked to greater overall and abdominal fat loss, often with reduced hunger and more fat loss than lower protein diets, even without strict calorie counting. Excellent sources of lean protein include chicken breasts, fish, lean cuts of red meat like sirloin and tri-tip, beans, lentils, peas, nuts, and seeds. Number 5, stop drinking alcohol. Oh, I'm sure you've heard this before and you might be tired of hearing it, but alcohol is very calorically dense and can interfere with the body's ability to burn calories and cause fat storage. It can also increase the production of hormones that promote fat storage. One study showed that even moderate alcohol consumption correlates with abdominal distribution of body fat, likely due to enlarged visceral fat area. If you're serious about eliminating visceral fat, you need to be serious about eliminating alcohol. Don't shoot the messenger, it's the science. Now, we've just discussed 5 dietary changes you can make to reduce visceral fat, as well as belly fat in general. Next, we're going to talk about exercise. What is the best exercise for losing visceral fat? Let's rank them in order from minimally effective to most effective, starting with weightlifting. Weightlifting or resistance training, while extremely important, hear me when I say this, extremely important to longevity and overall health, only helps minimally when considering losing visceral fat. Next, we have zone 2 cardio. Zone 2 cardio like low heart rate running, swimming, cycling, and rowing is better than weightlifting because it puts your body into fat burning mode and improves the health of your mitochondria. Now this helps to reduce overall body fat, including visceral fat. Moderate to high intensity cardio or high intensity interval training, or HIIT, is the best. For example, sprinting boosts metabolism through excess post-exercise oxygen consumption, which means your body continues to burn calories at a higher rate for hours after the sprint workout has concluded. It also naturally triggers the release of HGH, human growth hormone, and testosterone, which aid in fat metabolism, muscle growth, and recovery. Sprinting also recruits fast-twitch muscle fibers, which are more metabolically active and contribute to a more toned, athletic physique. It also doesn't have to take much time. 15 to 20 minute high-intensity cardio training 1 to 3 times per week is enough to make measurable progress. And it doesn't have to be sprinting. It could also be rowing, swimming, cycling, or a circuit of bodyweight exercises. It also doesn't have to be an all-out 100% effort. That's not required. As long as you're getting your heart rate to at least 75% of max, you're in the visceral fat burning zone. An example could look like this. Warm up for 10 minutes, followed by 30 seconds of intense exercise. Again, this could be running, sprinting, or rowing, swimming, cycling, or a circuit of bodyweight exercises. Followed by 1 to 3 minutes of recovery, followed by another 30 seconds of intense exercise. And again, 1 to 3 minutes of recovery. Continue that pattern until you've done 4 to 6 30-second bursts of intense exercise. Now, there are a lot of different variations of this. This is just one example that I'm using to illustrate the concept. Now, with exercise in mind, we just need to remember to avoid being sedentary in general. One of the most important factors for reducing visceral fat and fat in general is not just how intense your workouts are, but how much total exercise you're doing in a given period of time. So the overall amount of exercise. So even if you're not scheduled to do a workout, like in the gym, for example, you should still schedule some time for low impact, moderate exercise, like walking. Aim for a minimum of 7,500 steps or more. You can also do cycling, rowing, or swimming if you prefer. In addition to diet and exercise, another very important thing to consider is to do all that you can to improve sleep and reduce harmful stress. Poor sleep and stress increase the hormone cortisol, which increases storage of visceral fat. Getting quality sleep can lower the risk of storing extra visceral fat, and stress reduction exercises like deep breathing and meditation can help.